So I'm Harry Turner. I'm one of Talenton's founding partners. I grew up in rural Australia, son of an Anglican priest, for better or worse. After graduating from university with a computer science degree, I spent the first half of my career working in tech consulting and then investment banking. And I'm sure all of you who have met my darling wife Julie, who's disappeared, are wondering how in the world I ended up managing to land Julie when the combination of computer programming and investment banking is like mixing cardboard with beige paint. Well, the answer to that is Julie is the daughter of a builder, and she's always been interested in fixer-upper projects. So 30 years married this year and still going. For the past 21 years, in one way or another, I've been working in organisations that have had a focus on lifting people out of poverty. My journey in this work started when I took a trip to the Philippines to see the work of a wonderful Christian charity called International Care Ministries. And God really used that process to change really the way I thought about poverty. And then really challenged me and changed my life, leading me into what I'm doing at the moment and out of investment banking. And in truth, I very much had my Jonah moments on this, and all I can say is I imagine Jonah didn't have a wife who wouldn't let him get on the boat in the first place. So, but during these decades, I've seen firsthand a whole wide range of different interventions that people have tried to execute to lift people out of poverty. Things like microfinance, micro savings groups, cash transfers, food distribution programs. You know, there's a whole wide range of things. And all of those programs, to some degree or another, have a tremendous impact. But I became very convinced that the thing that was going to be most transformational in people's lives was to get a good, stable job. A good, stable, well-paid job. So when David called me up back in 2016 and said he had this idea, which has subsequently led to Talenton, I was all in from the very beginning. Today's panel is focused on helping you understand the impact in impact investing. We don't have a panel helping you understand the investing in impact investing because actually most of you know investing. And I want to say what we do here at Talenton is not different from an investing perspective from what you might expect of a private equity fund or a hedge fund. They go and look for companies that are going to produce return in line with risk, etc. We do that. But you might be asking yourself the question, what do we mean by impact when it comes to impact investing? So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we do that, I want to introduce the two of Talenton's associate partners, Andy Moore and Iris Wen. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. Around half the room, Andy, have not met you before. So can you describe your role with Talenton and something of your journey into this space?
For sure. So I think I have met maybe half the people in the room. But the other half is my project to connect with you over this next couple of days. Particularly the brand new people. Thank you for coming to hear a little bit about a fund and be part of a community that you're just getting to know. Really hope that you're identifying with this mission and feeling warmly welcomed into this community. So my name's Andy. My role at Talenton is the CFO, so finance guy. And that basically means I do the things you might expect. I take the lead on internal and external reporting, things to do with fund performance, really involved with our portfolio companies, monitoring their performance, thinking about valuations on the balance sheet, all of that stuff. And with all of that said, it's probably a difficult argument for me to win, but honestly, I'm not that much of a numbers geek. I do other things too. I contribute to the leadership team's conversation about strategy, thinking how do we live out the values that we say we live on a platform like this, spiritual leadership of the team, mentoring junior staff, and the best part is actually just friendships with our cherished investors. In terms of my journey into the work, probably two themes to identify. The first is with the kind of skills and background that you'd expect for somebody that does the work of a CFO. So I spent 10 years with KPMG in London, advising some of the large London PE houses on buying and selling stuff, a few IPOs. After that, I was at Liberty Global, a NASDAQ-listed cable company. And immediately before joining Talenton, I set up an angel investment network with a small VC fund in the UK. So there's the first theme. The second is a journey with Christian apologetics and evangelism. I had the privilege for a few years of kind of being invited to go and speak at some of the world's biggest banks and law firms to talk about questions of the marketplace and people that worked in the marketplace, to offer thoughtful responses from the perspective of the Christian worldview, getting to talk about its credibility, its coherence, and the difference that it makes in the way life is lived. So I've got those two themes, and I just count it as the privilege of my life, basically, to now be on a team that holds the two of those things together. And so just a delight. That's me, Harry, basically. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Iris, same question to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what makes you so committed to the strategy we've developed here at Talenton.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Harry. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Iris Wen, and I want to weave a couple of things together and tell you a little bit about myself and get to know a little bit about you as well. So first, I'm a mom of 2 boys who are 9 and 7. Okay, so they amaze me every day in very, very different ways because they are so different. My 7-year-old is, his name is Xavier, and he's a drummer. And so that tells you a little bit about my life in that it's never quiet. And he's a drummer, and so this is how I want to know a little bit about you all. I'm going to play a clip here, and what I'd like for you to do is, when you recognize this song, I'd like for you to raise your hand and then keep it raised in the air, okay? All right, ready? We're going to do that.
Go again.
All right, okay. Okay, I think I saw your hand first. What song is it?
Okay, I recognize it, but I can't remember.
Oh, no, you gotta name
Go
the
on.
song. What song is it?
I know it's David Bowie.
It is. Does anybody know the name of the song?
I thought it was Queen.
Well, Queen and David Bowie.
Go on.
Yes. Under Pressure. Bingo. Yes, very good. Okay, well, what that tells me as well, first of all, I'm going to have to find a prize for you. Thank you for naming the song. It was by Queen and David Bowie. By the way, Eric Most, that was like his audition for next year's Bring Hope Celebration. So if you need a drummer, I'm volunteering my 7-year-old. But that also tells me that some of you here, actually not as many as I thought would raise their hand, are between 40 and 65, and so maybe closer to 40, but thank you. So this kid of mine, Xavier, he asked me a very poignant question last summer when we were in Kenya together. I was in Kenya with both my kids, and we were in the back of an Uber, driving along the streets of Nairobi through a low-income community. And I see Xavier looking very intently out the window at those roadside shops and kiosks that you see. If you've ever been to Kenya, you know, like you see those along the road. And he looks at them very intently. And suddenly he looks at me, he goes, "Mommy, these people look like they have jobs, but they don't have customers. They're just sitting there." So I, sensing a teaching opportunity in this moment, said, "Well, do you think that they are good jobs?" and he says, "I don't think so. I mean, how are they going to make money and be less poor?" And this very simple conversation basically sums up who I am, both as a mother and as a partner of Talenton. Right? Because I've been asking the same question across my 20-year career. When I became a Christian at Cornell, I got a heart for using business to alleviate poverty. And then I went into investment banking. I started a microfinance organization, doing microfinance work mostly in Western Africa. and then through my MBA at Oxford, and now as a partner in Talenton, I ask this question, especially as I'm the head of impact. I'm asking this question always: what is a good job? So I'm actually very excited to talk to you more about that today.
Thanks, Iris. Wonderful. I'm actually only putting these glasses on to make a sight gag, but I don't see. Is Eric Most here? I was going to say, this is what you're going to look like in 10 years' time, but, when you don't have that ginger beard anymore and it's, put it away. I got glasses because my best mate is an optometrist and I was helping him out. Don't really need them. So thanks, Iris and Andy. It's been really such a blessing to have both of these guys on our team, and I'm sure during the course of this panel and through the week through the weekend, you'll absolutely realise that we at Talenton are totally living up to the idea that you should always recruit people that are smarter than yourselves and seek to make yourself redundant, and that's absolutely what's happening here. What is impact investing? It's a broad term. It's not really one thing. You might find a fund that says, we focus on investing in healthcare companies, or on financial inclusion, or on housing for people who have no houses. You might find people who say they're after environmental concerns or education. All of those things are impact investing. So what do we at Talenton mean by impact investing? So Talenton seeks to invest in companies that are values aligned in sub-Saharan Africa that have potential to create large-scale employment. That's what we mean by impact investing. Let's dig into that a little bit. Values aligned. To start with, we want to work with leadership teams that align with our faith values. How they treat their staff, how they treat their clients, how they treat their suppliers, how they act with integrity, and all of the sort of things that you can imagine that align with a Christian faith value set. That's very important to us. And actions speak far louder than words. So, we don't walk into the door and find somebody who says, yes, I'm a Christian, and go, okay, tick. Actually, that's not even a question. And we have leaders in our portfolio who wouldn't describe themselves as Christians. We care deeply about alignment with values. We care deeply about teams that are willing to understand who we are, and we'll share through the course of the day some really amazing opportunities we've had to be salt and light to some of these leaders. So that's what we mean by values aligned. Sub-Saharan Africa, you heard Henry talk about the issue there of the world's poor 80% being in Africa by 2030. Just to put some context around this, 400 million people will be entering the workforce by 2035. This is not a future number that's sort of made up. These are kids and young adults that are already in sub-Saharan Africa who need a job. And the World Bank estimates that we're on a pathway to create about 100 million jobs. So 300 million person gap. And that's what that's the reason why sub-Saharan Africa is critical in our strategy. And employment is the last piece. In David's talk last night, you heard that we believe that work brings dignity, that jobs bring stability, and that this leads to flourishing spread through families, churches, communities, and countries. So that's what we mean. When people say, what is impact investing for Talenton? Impact investing is investing in values-aligned companies in sub-Saharan Africa that have the potential to create employment at scale. So with that lens in mind, I'm going to do a pop quiz. I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to name the company and tell me whether you think this company would fit, based on its mission statement, whether this company might fit in our portfolio. So, to be the leading energy efficient appliance manufacturer in, and I'm not going to name the geography because that might give it away. So, show of hands if you think this is a valid portfolio company. Hands up. Yeah, most people. Anyone want to yell out the name of the company? There should be at least one person in the room who knows the name of this company. It is Burn Manufacturing, that's right. And yes, absolutely a fit for our fund. It's It's in sub-Saharan Africa. Burn manufacturing creates employment directly en masse and has huge additional benefits to people from a health perspective. How about this one? So, to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us, to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with. Would this be a good portfolio company? Hands up if you think this is a great portfolio company. Anyone know the company? This is Chick-fil-A's mission statement. Great mission statement, by the by. This is not a portfolio company that we would look at. Values alignment, absolutely. Sub-Saharan Africa, not so much. It does create mass employment, but it's not, so it doesn't sort of fit our little niche. Try this one. Internet in every, put in a geography. Hands up if we think this is a potential for a Talenton portfolio company. Yeah, we've got a, anyone want to shout out the name of this company? Power Internet, that's right. Well done, we're getting the hang of this. What about this one? This is a harder one. A technology leader in AI, big data, and law enforcement solutions. We empower governments, law enforcement, and enterprise with intelligent, secure, and stable tools that drive digital transformation and enhance decision-making. Hands up if you think this is a good portfolio company. There's a few hands. Yeah, so I got this one. I don't know the name of this company, actually. I got this one in the mail from an introducer who we get lots of referrals from companies, and I said no before I even put the deck down. This is not a job-creating company. This is potentially going to make boatloads of money. These guys are onto something, but that doesn't fit our thesis or hypothesis. They are working in Africa, but I couldn't see any evidence that this company would have any job-creative piece at all, so we said no. How about this one? This is the mission statement of the company: to deliver quality engineering solutions. Any hands for this one? Anyone? One or two? This is absolutely in our portfolio. This is Auto Springs East Africa. This is a company that has focused on, and this is something you'll see about these companies, you don't necessarily see a picture here that says, you know, we're going to save the world. These guys are just out to do really well at engineering solutions. They create springs for trucks. They create wiring harnesses for motorcycles. One of the other companies in our portfolio desperately asked us to invest in this company because it's so important to the ecosystem in Kenya. And so Auto Springs East Africa, absolutely in the portfolio, and I should say doing extremely well. So, well done on your Q&A. I think that's the last one. Yeah. So I hope that gives you an idea of what we mean by impact investing, and just a few little pop quiz. Andy, as we've heard, the most headline aspect of Talenton's investment strategy is targeting job creation. I'm going to get into the specifics of what that means with Iris in a minute, but can you share some more? You gave us a little hint there that you've done some Christian apologetic stuff. So we're going to leverage into that. Can you share some more about that strategy and how it ties in with our Christian priorities?
That's one way to raise the expectations of an answer that I hope hits the target. So I think one of the elements of the invitation to Christian discipleship is basically to ask the question, what's some of the stuff that's gone wrong with the world? And what is God doing to fix it? That's part of what happens when you develop a Christian worldview. You think about some of those questions. And if we go back to, the creation narratives, what we read about what God did when he set up the world in Genesis, what you notice is that before sin entered the picture, there was work. And so the creation that was described as very good contained work. Humanity was placed in the garden to work in it, to cultivate it. In other words, to exert physical effort, to create, to cultivate. And humanity was invited to join with identifying and naming the animals, taxonomy, which in other words is to say to apply their intellect in part of this dignity which is uniquely bestowed on humanity as part of that created order. So then, how do we get around to this idea of creating jobs as being a Christian priority? Well, consider what it looks like when there are no jobs. People are denied the opportunity to exert themselves physically in cultivating, in creating, in serving. People are denied the opportunity to apply their intellect. In other words, people are denied the opportunity to experience the dignity which God gave them in creation. And when there are no jobs, the experience, the first person experience of not having a job leads to feelings of hopelessness, of worthlessness. If anyone here has ever had a period of non-employment, you can maybe relate to that. The communities and families around that, the poverty quickly transcends anything which we would define materially. And then taking the big picture view of that from the perspective of the world that God created, it's the intrusion of an evil that cannot be tolerated. That's what it looks like when there are no jobs. Suppose the alternative. Perhaps the focused effort of a Christian investment fund to create jobs in impoverished parts of the world, for example, sub-Saharan Africa, and a body of believers really enthusiastic about the idea of faithfully and wisely stewarding their capital. Well, then you see the impact, what it looks like when there are stable, well-paying, reliable jobs, giving rise to incomes which transform family lives, houses are built, kids go to school. So that's why it's a Christian priority to try and restore some of that stuff that was lost when stuff went wrong with the world. God is fixing it. It's an invitation to participate in what he's doing. I would just add that I think that when you restore that purposefulness, that hope of that the first person experience of having a job, it increases the likelihood of that person connecting those gifts, those opportunities with the giver of the gifts. It also increases the probability of them looking upwards and thanking the giver of the gifts for the gifts. So there's quite a lot tied up with this investment strategy.
Yeah. And anyone who wants to dig into that, don't let Andy eat at lunchtime. That's Iris, what is a job? So some jobs are highly paid, highly skilled. Actually, Auto Springs hires a lot of engineers. You might see chemists at PRI or at Kentegra. Some jobs are stable but paid a minimum wage. You might see workers in a factory and that sort of things. Other jobs are just improvements on existing incomes. Our motorcycle taxi riders in Kenya whose income might improve, say, 40%. So, we see all of that stuff, smallholder farmers who generate more revenue. What do we mean by creating or supporting a job? So what is a job? What do we mean by creating or supporting a job? And do we have a preference?
Yeah.
And I think you might want to use that.
Okay.
Is that for this one?
Okay. Right.
It's just a big button.
Okay, well, let me start by asking you a question. I want you to think back to your very first job. Now, raise your hand if that job was glamorous and high-paying.
David Payne.
Of course, David Payne.
Of course, David Payne.
Okay, now raise your hand if it was a little bit more humble. Maybe scooping ice cream, babysitting, there we go, working on the family farm, something like that, right? Our first jobs are most likely not our dream jobs, but they were critical stepping stones. They gave us dignity, they gave us a paycheck, a path forward, right? And the same is true for a lot of the people and communities that we serve at Talenton. So when we talk about creating jobs, we're not just counting positions. Right? We're talking about creating opportunity and stability where there was little before. And that's the key. So at Talenton, we say that a good job is a predictable, dignified, generative source of work and income that enables holistic flourishing. Predictable means stability, so you can count on that work and paycheck. Dignified means respect, so you're treated as a human being with value. And generative means that the job creates tangible good or value, not just for the worker, but for their companies, their families, and their communities, even if that work is simple. So whether that's a chemist at Kentegra or a boda rider with ArcRide who is gaining safer access to financing or equipment, the key here is that the job moves somebody towards stability and flourishing. We recognize that job creation happens in an ecosystem. So I want to give you this framework that we use. We have some companies that are directly employing 500 factory and field workers, and these are primarily our job creators. But then there are others in our portfolio that are job enablers who are giving opportunities to the vulnerable, or job enhancers who are making existing jobs easier or more efficient. Right? Or job pioneers like AutoSprings, who is bringing new skills like wiring harnesses to the African continent. And so it's really important to recognize, we map out obviously our portfolio companies onto this framework. It's really important to recognize that all of those kinds of jobs are needed. We also look at different levels of job impact because we know that there are some jobs that are more direct, which we call primary job impact, where it's direct, stable, contractual employment, right? Those are really, really powerful jobs. But there are also secondary job impacts, which affect people whose earnings are directly impacted by the company's operations, but maybe less predictably, like gig workers or suppliers. So we recognize them as well. And then we have tertiary systemic impact, job impact, which is where individuals get access to things like education and healthcare and upskilling and training. And maybe they don't have earnings right in that moment today, but they are getting future earning potential. Then that's also really, really important as well. And so when we look at impact, we look at all of these things. So this is just a little bit of how we think about impact. But the key is that we don't just look at impact jobs, creating jobs as a number to count. We look at it as a journey towards stability and flourishing.
Thanks, Cyrus. And you'll note on that slide, actually that adds up to way more than 110,000. It's because we only count the two inner rings. But that doesn't undermine the importance of the outer ring in that picture. Now, we say we count these things, Iris. How can the investors here gain confidence that this is actually real? It's a nice big number.
Yeah.
But how do we know that's actually happening?
Yeah. It's a good job. How do we know that these jobs are real?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me ask you to picture something.
Well, how do the investors know that when we say we're invested in 110,000 jobs?
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, so let me ask you to picture something. Let's imagine that you are in front of one of our factories that we've made an investment in, and you can hear the machines humming, you can smell the sawdust if you're at MoCo, or you can smell the chrysanthemum flowers if you're at Kentegra. And you can, and you see one of the workers at MoCo, and you go up to her. Her name is Zawadi, and she tells you that she's been with MoCo for 4 years. She's got 2 kids, and this is her job. This is her job that she uses to support all of them. This is how her kids get through school. And now imagine a spreadsheet with some interesting numbers. The numbers say, 1,300 jobs, 15% growth rate, 90% retention rate. Which one of these gives you more confidence that the impact is real? Well, so at Talenton, we believe that impact starts with real people and real stories, and we believe that the numbers are really important. Okay, your financial numbers are really, really important to us. Why would your impact numbers, not be just as important, right? And so when it comes to how do we know these jobs are real? How do you guys know that these jobs are real? For us, it comes down to rigor and relationships. So when it comes to rigor, we start in due diligence. Actually, is that the next one? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we start off in due diligence. We don't just look at financial metrics, obviously. We actually have a very robust impact assessment where we look at job quality, depth and growth of job impact, impact risk. And then we actually also look at all the externalities beyond job impact, like environmental impact, because we also care about those as well. And so even within due diligence, we are looking at those things. Then the more important thing is that we then walk alongside each of our portfolio companies on a journey, and we help them map their impact value creation pathway. I can't get into all the details of this right now, but I would like to promote right now that if you would like to hear more about this in detail, I will be at a breakfast table tomorrow where I can talk to you more about the details of this. But within this, within our relationship, our post-investment relationship with our companies, we want to see them understand their impact goals better, discover their impact, and build an impact strategy around them that allows them to create more impact. We also partner with an impact research organization called Dakotas. So this has been a game changer in making our impact more credible and verifiable, which is really important. Dakotas speaks directly with workers through mobile voice surveys, and then they use advanced analytics and AI to remove biases and surface honest feedback, both positive and negative, which is what we want to see. So last year, we did a pilot with them with our avocado export business, BioFarms, which really blew us away when we looked at the results, because they did not just analyze the content of what was said, they analyzed the emotions and the intonations of what was said, which gave us such much richer data on how to improve the impact strategy of BioFarms. So saw improvements in income and quality of life and livelihoods, but also saw the need for training farmers and making that more formal. And so now we're having a conversation with BioFarms about how does that look like and how can we improve that so that you are creating more impact for the farmers. And because that was so successful, we are now scaling it up with 3 companies this year, 2 of which are here, Moco and POA, and ArcRide. And actually, as we speak right now, that survey is going live, and in the next few weeks, we'll be getting some of those results, which will be really exciting. So when it comes to impact, what I'd like you to understand is it's not a static number. It is a journey. It is a journey because jobs evolve, and jobs evolve. A farmer can start with a vulnerable livelihood, but through training, through access to seeds, through forward contracts with companies, they can have jobs that are more predictable, more dignified, and more generative. So as investors, when you are partnering with Talenton, I'd like for you to understand that you're not just getting quarterly numbers or annual numbers when it comes to impact. You are really joining us on this impact journey with each of our portfolio companies.
Thanks, Iris. And I suppose I'll do a quick shout out. For many of you will have seen that when we were marketing for the Momentum Fund, alongside that, we marketed for the Extra Mile account, which is a charitable donation to support a variety of things working with our portfolio companies. The work we're doing with Dakotas is a really good example of something that's funded through that Extra Mile account. So if anyone's going, what is that Extra Mile account? That's the sort of thing that it enables us to do that might not be affordable inside a normal sort of management fee structure. So we're really keen for that to happen. So thanks, Iris. Andy, we've been focused on job creation. There are 2 other ways. We'll hear David talk about a triple bottom line. Actually, I've heard you talk about a quadruple bottom line. We add bottom lines all the time. We typically, we measure financial impact as part of our bottom line, and we're going to get into that. Actually, I'm going to do it the other way around. We also talk about, no, that's right. we've had a number of companies when we talk about impact investing, and we've had a number of investors when we talk about impact investing, suggest that targeting market rate returns is not impact investing. So we've had that kind of played back at us. In general, we do target market rate returns in general. But the idea that's come up in this underlying assumption that that focusing on market rate returns is sort of wrong and not impact, and we should be focusing on concessional returns. What do you think? And where does your sort of faith views sit in that?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we get to talk about this from the platform, because any talented investor has thought about this, and any prospective talented investor is thinking about this. And so there's a whole bunch of opinions. I think the way that Harry phrased the question probably inferred about 14 opinions in that.
Yeah.
And so, what can I say? Perhaps as a sensible starting point, something that anyone with an opinion on this could agree on, which is that we're in a period of history where this concept of impact investing is being defined. It's kind of taking shape. Maybe in 100 years there'll be a clear meaning and far fewer opinions, but for today, we're in this moment of history where maybe a sensible, humble thing to say could be that the impact investor may need to be prepared to accept lower financial returns from that portion of their portfolio, but by no means do I think it's inevitable that they should have to accept that. And in the long run, I actually think it will be the impact investments that perform most handsomely. So at Talenton, I would say we target maximal financial returns. Maximal is the word that I've chosen because we do target the highest level of financial returns that we can without compromising on the other things that are important to the investors that we serve. So I don't say market rate returns because it just begs the question, what markets are you referring to? Right? It's kind of just an unhelpful term. And I don't say maximum financial returns because we do reject the opportunity to make profit at any cost. So this middle ground of maximal financial returns, which is in keeping with being a faithful witness to Christ in all our dealings. We as a partner group know that we will give account to the Lord for the way that we stewarded the capital entrusted to us. We will also explain to him how we gave witness in Christ's name to the portfolio companies we negotiated with. We've got all of that to come. We're very mindful of the position that we set ourselves up for. We want to be faithful investors in every sense of that word. But to get to some of the opinions in the question, that doesn't, by definition, make us concessionary investors. Concession is the territory of philanthropy, and we celebrate philanthropy. We know that Talenton would not be here without the courageous philanthropy of its founder. Philanthropy has a very important, unique role to play in the alleviation of poverty. But philanthropy is not the lane that Talenton has been designed and set up to run in. So then let's think about that as a Christian. What are some of the things that I can say in around 1 minute? Well, we need to set aside the notion that profit is only ever a thing which arises when somebody else loses. I think that's an unhelpful notion. And it's not a zero-sum game. Profit at other people's expense has been a true and real, valid criticism of capitalism at its worst. But it's not the full story. And so the biblical concepts of fruitfulness, of reaping where you've sown, when those activities are governed by the virtues of kindness and grace, those are the things that break the zero-sum game. Those are the things that make things greater than the sum of their parts and which have the power to bust through the injustice of other ways that it's been done. And so with our impact fund in particular, where the investment strategy is predominantly debt-led, we're mindful of the instruction, the requirements of Biblical Jubilee, for example. We know that that's a very important guide to us, but we look to God's wider moral law, and we see that he has hardwired it to creation, that it's the things that speak of him that will see the increase in the long run. And that has to, at some point, go along with something that we can observe outwardly and which we can measure. And maybe, for want of a better phrase, we call it a triple bottom line. You should be able to track it somehow in the world that we live in this reality that we know God is active within. So, we seek to invest, we seek to sow, we seek to reap this multi-dimensional return, and within that, maximal financial returns, as I've described it, are a really irreducible element.
Thanks, Andy. Iris gave a plug for an impact table. Tomorrow morning, Andy's also going to be at a breakfast table talking about financial returns, among other things, including philosophy, by the seams of things, which is great. So this question then I'm going to ask is really just a teaser, because if you really want to go into the detail, then there'll be an opportunity tomorrow. Even if we think that pursuing profit's theoretically possible and compatible with a Christian outlook on business, which I think we do, it doesn't mean you're actually going to do it. So thinking about the wider market dynamics, why are you optimistic about the potential of our strategy?
So this is my favourite question, Harry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the wider market dynamics here are some of the most interesting parts of the whole conversation, because this concept of impact investing that we said is being defined in this moment that we happen to live in, it's redefining the landscape of investment activity. It's completely changing how people think about their portfolios and how they want to allocate their capital. A new dimension, and I choose that phrase really carefully. I mean, in reality, this is a new dimension, a new prism to think about these things through. We're really familiar with the old prism of risk and reward being the kind of thing that you try to optimize. We know that we therefore take this logic and we create a portfolio that we think is diversified and optimized for a level of risk and reward that's in line with what we have an appetite for. That's been the thing which has really been the logic of all market activity since the Second World War, basically. And what happened in this past 50, 60 years is the advent of information, knowledge about what drives that market over there or that industry over there. We're able to bring this into our thinking and the equations that we make to construct portfolios. And this logic of risk and reward, that basically gave rise to venture capital. That was the thing that we called where we placed the allocation that we attached a little bit of extra risk to. And venture capital, in turn, drove amazing things, like the technological revolution that we've seen in the past generation. It's been superb. That logic has served us incredibly well. But what's continued to happen is that knowledge keeps on growing. And now, just in addition to risk and reward, investors can now take into account the impact. In other words, the cause, the things that are caused, the externalities which result from their decisions to invest in this or that company. Another way to conceive of it is to say that every dollar invested is kind of like a vote for the world that you want to see. And now this new dimension of impact can increase an investor's ability to construct a portfolio which is not just optimized for their appetite of risk and reward, but which now can be shaped to be in line with their values and what they want their legacy of investment to be. So, 2D risk and reward is a bit kind of flat. 3D risk, reward, and impact, it's just kind of more true to life. We're on this never-ending increase of knowledge of the way that we can put these things together. So that's just the widest possible view of big old, call it philosophy, Harry, market dynamics. But we offer the opportunity, obviously, to invest for job creation, you've heard, in particular markets, sub-Saharan Africa. So to put some names on that, that's Kenya, the logistical and financial hub for the whole region. That's Rwanda, usually ranked top in the whole continent for the ease of doing business. That's Uganda, with incredible kind of natural resources potential and some of the fastest growing economies in the whole world. So there's quite a lot tied up with my optimism here, Harry, and this particular investment strategy.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. And we're actually in the process at the moment. We've just approved as a team of moving into Ghana, which is one of the fastest growing economies. Actually, you heard Henry Kaesner say there's 11 of the 20 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. One might argue from a risk-return perspective that not investing in Africa is a risk. So just put that out there. Andy, I did talk about we talked about the triple bottom line. So we've talked about the social impact created through jobs. We've talked about the financial impact, and if you want to get into more detail, definitely grab Andy on that. The third aspect of our triple bottom line is spiritual impact. What do we mean by a spiritual bottom line? And can you give us some examples of spiritual impact and or what Talenton might actually do to achieve that spiritual impact?
Yeah. So we're here talking about the call to alleviate poverty. But alleviation of poverty is not an end in itself. That mission has meaning because it's something like I said at the beginning, it's the invitation to join God in what he's doing to fix the world. And to that extent, it's an invitation to relationship with God himself. So this spiritual impact that we talk about, or we sometimes use the phrase spiritual integration, that is so close. Well, it is our DNA. It's something that we want to cultivate at every level of our operations, internally and externally. And I was reminded, recently, just in my own Bible reading, in the Gospel of Luke, where you might remember the parable of the rich fool, the guy that had a good harvest and he built bigger barns, but he was ultimately bankrupt because he lacked riches towards God. And that's kind of the picture of what we want to avoid in terms of impact among some farmers who literally have had to build bigger barns where some of our investments have gone quite well. So delivering on this triple bottom line, spiritual impact, encouragement of riches towards God, it starts really close to home. Each and every member of the Talenton team is a committed Christian, guided in every way by their faith and their submission to the Lord and what we read in his word. We place prayer, biblically informed values, and devotional time. So we take time out of the working day regularly to consider something in God's word. We take it in turns to share a lesson with one another. It's right at the heart of what we do, this posture of learning, of service, of humility. And that extends to the other groups that input to how Talenton is led. Our board of advisors, our investment committee are also people of mature faith, and their wisdom, their counsel is a never-ending source of God's grace to the organization. We need them, and it's a fundamental part of how we get on and how we make decisions. Looking externally, we basically try to avoid having a kind of programmatic or top-down approach to spiritual impact, spiritual integration. And that's partly because we think that the Holy Spirit moves in different ways, in different times, in different places. And it's partly because we really want to take the companies, the leaders in front of us seriously. Listen to what they say. What are they trying to do? And what is the spiritual opportunity in that particular context? So we avoid the top-down idea. But that being said, we still have some kind of structure. I don't want to create I want to have you hear something that I'm not saying. We do have rhythms, particularly of a regular prayer call with those portfolio company leaders and CEOs. Even those that don't profess faith are invited and come along pretty regularly. It's a space we create for them to share personal or organizational challenges, and we take them to the Lord in an intentional way. Actually, last night you heard some of the amazing answers to prayer that we've seen through that. We get to have the front row seat to celebrate that with our portfolio companies. We've been delighted to support bigger stuff, bigger community spiritual initiatives. Long Miles Coffee, one of our earliest investments. We were glad to get behind a Bible school, a Bible summer school that was ran for something like 12,000 kids in Burundi. We know that Contegra and the farmers that have touch points with that company have been introduced to various gospel truths through that means. So we see bigger things too. And then the last thing just to quickly mention, which is really important to me, but not just me, I know that I'm speaking on behalf of all of the Talented team, which is we deeply cherish the rhythms of prayer that we have with our investor community. We have a 6-weekly Zoom call where we come on together and we want to journey with any investors who are free and able to join that Zoom call to listen to any personal or professional challenges and to pray together with you all on those things. And from our point of view, we're really open about challenges we might be having on the Talented side as well. It's just a very beautiful thing to think about the spiritual integration to come and land this in the language that we use of all of those groups that have touch points with Talented. So that's some of what we mean, Harry.
Thanks, Andy. And Andy's also leading a... No, I'm kidding. At this point, though, I do want to put a plug in for the prayer box, which is over there. So if you do have anything you'd love us to be praying for, please feel free to take advantage of that. And I also want to say, as I think about our spiritual integration, and I've had questions from a variety of people about, why is it that not all of the CEOs are professing Christians? One of the ways we think about this is asking ourselves the question, to whom are we being salt and light? And when we work and partner with organisations like Contegra, who are strongly professing faith from the top down, we can see ourselves being salt and light not just to the leadership team, but in partnership with them to their whole community. But where we're working with leadership teams that don't have the same level of faith, then we are being salt and light to the leadership teams. And both of those things we think are valid and important. Iris, last night David got up and said 1 million jobs. And the whole team has sort of put that in front of ourselves and gone, well, we're at 110,000 now. That's 10x in the next 4 and a bit years. How are we going to do that? That's it. How are we going to scale 10x?
All right, that is we said that's a big, holy, audacious goal. I was talking to Cynthia about this. Cynthia works with me on the impact function. We said, big, holy, audacious goal. It's also hairy. It's also humbling. It's like a BHHHHHAG. So yeah, it is big. That's a big number. And when we say that out loud, I think because we have so many numbers in our fund, it's easy to think about it in terms of spreadsheets and a projection, another projection. But what I'd like for you guys to really marinate in is that 1 million jobs means 1 million families with more stability. It means 1 million stories of hope and opportunity, right? That wasn't there before. So it is a little bit different of a number. So yes, today our portfolio companies collectively touch 110,000 primary and secondary jobs. We don't actually count the tertiary jobs. We only count the primary and secondary jobs. So to scale tenfold by the end of the decade, we really need to focus on 2 things, practically speaking. We need to be walking with the right companies, and we need to be amplifying both direct and indirect job impact. And the exciting thing is we we've already seen what's possible with our current portfolio companies. Currently, many of them are employing hundreds of people directly and supporting tens of thousands of others indirectly, like suppliers, gig makers, gig workers, and smallholder farmers. And as we've walked alongside these companies over the years, we have seen them, as you saw with Long Mouse Coffee, we've seen them grow 7 to 10x in size and in impact. And so to reach 1 million, we start by asking, what kind of companies create the deepest job impact? We talk about this within our investment team all the time when we talk about our pipeline companies. And the 3 things we will need to focus on: we'll need to invest in those companies with primary and secondary job impact. We'll need to support them through our impact value creation pathway as they scale. And we need to multiply our efforts by adding new high potential companies. And the exciting thing is that even within our pipeline right now, we see the profiles of some of those companies already in our pipeline. That's coming up. Anyone on the investment committee, that's going to be coming up in our conversations. And so we do have tremendous confidence that these opportunities are there and are attainable. So we know we can scale. We know we can scale confidently and credibly, especially with our work with Dakotas, we can do it credibly. There's a big if here. And there's a big if. We can only do this if you join us. Because we cannot get to 1 million jobs without more wisdom, more prayers, and more investment capital. And so, going back to David's question yesterday, why am I here? Why are you here? Please ask yourself that question.
Thanks, Iris. And the good news for you all is I left my summary piece in my bag. So, so you get the wing it. I was going to see if there's enough time. I don't think there's enough time for a few questions. You reckon? No, not enough time. So you're going to have plenty of opportunity to have questions with both Andy and Iris, plugging that tomorrow morning. They're teed up for at breakfast to have you do that. I don't think we can have 20-person tables. So get in early and get your seat. I don't think we're booking seats for that, Julie, are we? No. So first in, best dressed, as they say. So I just want to sum up here from the outset the question of understanding what Talenton means by impact. We invest in values-aligned companies in sub-Saharan Africa that have the potential to create jobs en masse. We do invest in some companies where the job numbers are smaller because we see that there is systemic influence of those companies. We do invest in companies that have very specific, if you like, niche impact stories that we love, like for those of you who've met the team from Masaka Creamery, a company that is hiring people largely from the deaf community, huge impact, not big numbers, but those things are still important to us when we look at a whole portfolio suite. So we'll invest in a broad range, but there'll be a number of companies, a fairly large number of companies in the portfolio that have that outsized impact in those first and second degree jobs. And we do this standing on the shoulders of giants. This afternoon, you're going to have a really great opportunity to hear from some of those giants. I can say that because I'm still physically bigger than all of them, so they won't be upset. But you'll hear from the portfolio company founders and senior leaders in those companies who we stand on the shoulders of what they're doing. We couldn't do this, obviously, without them. And so it's a really important thing for us that we stand on the shoulders of those giants. We stand on the shoulders of the giants, many of you in this room, who have invested in us, those people who took that early stage terrifying decision to back us. And we thank you, Peter, and we thank you, Bill and Dana, for the first investment. We're just standing on the shoulders of you all. And we're standing on the shoulders of a wide network of people who are praying for our success. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you, Andy and Iris, for a tremendous insight. Thank you.